Me, a lot of times what the question or the issue is are they making an actual informed
Right.
choice,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Can
What
you and most people don't.
and most people don't, and again,
Mm.
it's like the responsibility, it lies with the people that are convincing them that they can save this life. It also lies with the responsibility of the person that wants to hear it, that isn't
Mhm.
imagining all of the different circumstances, the different consequences, the beauty of it, the really hard things about it.
We all are gonna die. 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 Why don't we help each other prepare for it? Without death, there could not be life. I'm talking about end of life conversations, conversations about the end of life. Death and dying, grief and loss, conversations about the end of life. Welcome, everyone. Today we are talking with Monica Aurora
Mhm.
Kumar. Monica is an end of life educator, former nurse, and the author of Beyond Loss: The Power of Purposeful Grief. She's also the creator of the Complete Family Legacy Planning Framework, a program that helps families navigate end of life planning by bringing family values, relationships, and practical steps together in one place, with a structure and emotional support for those who have never been shown how to do this. Monica is from Vancouver, BC, the first in her family to be born in Canada after her parents immigrated from India with her older brother. In 2012, her mother died suddenly, and 9 months later, her brother died by suicide. In less than a year, she lost her entire immediate family.
Wow, that's big. That's big. Thank you. In 2017, Monica left her 15-year nursing career and moved to Mexico, driven, among other things, by a misalignment with the medical model's approach to life and death. We know about that. And the longing to live differently. Since then, she's trained as a death doula and advanced care planning specialist. Her work is deeply informed by both her professional background and personal experience, blending the practical with the emotional, and always guided by the belief that planning for death is really about honoring life.
Yes, it is.
Monica now lives much of her life in Spanish. We
Mhm.
should just do this in Spanish, huh,
Sí,
Luis?
vamos hablando en español.
Pues
But my Spanish isn't good enough, so we'll
exactly.
keep going. She believes that some of the most meaningful work we do is the quiet kind, sitting beside someone who's grieving, listening without fixing, and staying present. Really, that's really it. Staying present when things get hard. So thank you so much for joining us today, Monica. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little more about when you first became aware of death in your life?
Yeah, so that I remember the first time that I became aware of death was when I was 6 years old. My brother was quite a lot older than me. He was 12 years older than me, and he had already started to show signs of mental illness by that time, and he attempted suicide for the first time
Mm.
when I was
Wow.
6 and he was 18. So, what I remember is that I knew what happened. So, I don't remember how my parents explained it to me, but I remember understanding what happened and sort of what it meant. And
Mhm.
then what was more impactful and I think has had more of a effect on me and my attitudes, I would say, around death and life is when we would go to the psych ward to visit him
Mhm.
and they took me with them, and not necessarily my brother, I can't remember that so much, but I remember seeing the other patients that were very this is in the '80s, so
Mhm.
very over-medicated, like
Mm.
slumping over, drooling, and just having this it was so impactful to me, and I think it really even though I wouldn't have been able to understand it at the time, I think it started my ideas and questions around what is life? What is quality of life? Who
Mhm.
decides that for other people? And those kinds of questions, big, big questions. hmm
Yeah, so it does already sound that death, the awareness of death had an early start with you to start asking the questions. So tell us a little bit more about all those questions that you found yourself looking for answers to in your quest till today. Like what have all those formative times been like?
Yeah, it sort of that carried over to my career as in nursing as well, where I always felt like I was a little bit on the sidelines as far as my colleagues, other nurses, doctors, where there was this, obviously massive focus on we have to save this life. I worked in emergency too, so it was even,
Mm,
more. Um, but I was always asking this question of like, what is this person's life going to look like after this intervention?
yeah.
What they're unconscious, most likely. We don't have any direction from them. The family is now in a situation where they're making this decision right in this second of like life
Institute.
and death, right? Between this person,
Mhm.
with also not a clear picture of what that life is going to look like.
Mm,
And so, yeah, I think those are the questions that were always, like, brewing underneath me, and I was asking them to myself, and many times when I would try and, bring that up in any way to colleagues or anything, it was like, "What are you talking about?" Basically, like
Weirdo.
yeah, total weirdo. Um yeah, one of the scariest things that I heard a doctor say to me, and what we were talking about was especially to me really just, I mean, honestly wrong. We were talking about the change in, this is already 12 years ago. So we were talking about the change in technology for neonates and being able to save babies that were very premature, like more premature than we were able to at that time. And she said, as a doctor, it's really hard to let someone die.
Mhm.
And when I started asking her questions about, like, okay, but what about the brain development of that baby? And like,
Mhm.
are the parents prepared for like what kind of life that baby is going to have and
Mhm.
how they're going to develop and things like that? And that wasn't part of her process of it, right? It was like, no, we
Right.
can save this life.
You could save the body.
That can save the body,
yeah.
Mhm.
right? And so that was also related to the people with mental illness and the people that are,
Mhm.
marginalized and people that are making the decisions for those people that are powerless, that actually don't have a lot of concept of what it is to live that life and definitely don't have to live the consequences, suffering of
Mm,
whatever happens to them, right?
Choices. That's right.
Choices. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. That's a good point. Really good point. Both Annalise and I do classes trying to help people get ready, and you've got your work
Mhm.
that you're doing as well. We're going to hear more about that, but it's um it's really true that we do need to think seriously about what are we preserving, and it can be a very, very difficult question as well for people too.
Absolutely. Like when I was thinking about this, I'm like, is it even teachable? Like that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we're off the hook for like
Right.
not
Yeah.
Mhm.
trying, right? But is it actually teachable? And it does have to come from sort of both sides. Like I do think if we're speaking specifically about medicine, they're not the only ones that are responsible for this. But like if we're speaking specifically about medicine and how that needs to change from doctors and how they present life, death, illness, treatment,
Choices.
all of those
Mhm.
to patients. But this also has to come from our side as well, which conversations like this are so much important. There's so
Mhm.
many conversations going on. We also have to be ready to hear those things,
Yeah.
Right.
right? And then weigh it out
Hear them
accordingly.
and also having had this process that you're now standing on your values so that
Mhm.
when you have a choice, does this affect my quality of life in terms of eating, let's say, right? Or my
Right.
child eating. If it's a this child will be forever eating out of a feeding tube, it's a different, that's another value we hold. I'm a cook, I'm a chef, whatever, right? But we kind of like we don't have these ideas about these conversations or these values that people generally don't know what their values are.
Yeah.
No,
And
they
so when they're
haven't. No,
so
yeah.
no, so when they're confronted with this idea of life, they just hear life and let's just go, but they're not making value choices. And I think values are something that are really important to talk about.
Yeah.
There absolutely are. Like what you just said about, yes, life, but then related to that also is like, have you thought about what life is to you, right?
Mm.
Mhm.
Is it
Mhm.
breathing
Mhm.
unconsciously with a feeding tube, or is
Right.
it, the next step from that, or is it all the steps? Is it exactly how you live today,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
And
so
would you offer that as a choice for your baby or your elder? Right.
Mhm.
mhm,
Which I always remember Atul Gawan's on being mortal, I guess that the conversation he had was with his father who had cancer. And the conversation went, what do you consider quality of life? And he said, I want to be able to watch football with my friends and I want to eat an ice cream. And Atul was like, I don't understand. Like he doesn't even like sports. Like, what's the deal? But the quality of life piece for that was like, I want to be in community, able to sit with my friends and enjoy a something. And I want to actually lick an ice cream. So the moment when his father was told, oh, yeah, we could do this new, cutting edge uh, process on your, I think it was stomach cancer he had. And he's like, but you'll forever have to lay down in a bed. You will never be able to get up again. And you will only be fed by a feeding tube. And they're both like, oh, that's the moment when we choose because the value is sitting around with your friends and eating ice cream. That will
Mhm.
never happen again.
Yeah.
So now we have to like switch gears and say, no, now it's like comfort care, end of life, palliative stuff, right? But unless you have that conversation and you don't know that that person values eating an ice cream cone or eating
Right.
through their mouth.
Right. Right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
not even just the values. Like it was such a clear picture of,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
like no question around
Right.
what he meant by that or
Right.
anything like that. So
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
hmm
Yeah.
I've
It's,
heard that story before. Some reason I didn't know that it was from Being Mortal, because I
yeah,
haven't I haven't read that book. So
it's a good
yeah.
book.
Good
Yes.
book.
I'm going through the process of all the I don't know if you've read When Breath Becomes Air. It's another
Mm.
one
Oh,
that's
yeah. I
related to
think
Yeah.
that.
that's like right here.
Yeah,
I
so
got
when
them
I was
all.
I was between Being Mortal and that one, and at that time I chose When Breath Becomes Air, and now I'll
Yeah.
read the Being Mortal.
I
Yeah.
will say Being Mortal is for me was a lot better of a book because it gave you the tools to think about those values.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think that I want to live my life from my values. And so when people have like, oh, you could do this, well, does it align with my values? And if it doesn't, well, I could just say no or I get to
Mhm.
walk away. Right. So I
Mhm.
think around death and dying, it's like you have to know what your values are. Right. And even for having a child, because I was raised with a family who had a disabled kiddo, and my entire life was all about taking care of that one person.
That is very much a lived experience.
Mhm.
And you
It
Yes.
can
is.
know, right? Like it's something that and you know how you were affected by that experience for
Mhm.
the good and for the bad, and whether or not that was
Yeah,
like
and I won't even give it a like a binary like that. It
no.
is it's a lived experience that
Mhm.
that still continues to speak into my life around the things that I value and how I move forward. And I don't judge people in their myriad of choices. I
Yeah.
just know that for my sister just died 5 years ago, and so for 51 years of my life, it was a constant support of this one person. This entire family supported one person, and
Mhm.
that's a lot. That's a big ask.
Mhm.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. It
Very much.
definitely is.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think what you just said about the myriad of choices and respecting those choices, and 100%. I think for me a lot of times what
Mhm.
the question or the issue is are they making an actual informed
Right,
choice?
Yeah.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
Can
What
you? And most people don't.
and most people don't. And again,
Mm,
it's like the responsibility, it lies with the people that are convincing them that they can save this life. It also lies with the responsibility of the person that wants to hear it, that isn't
Mhm.
imagining all of the different circumstances, the different consequences, the beauty of
mhm.
it, the really hard things about it, how it's going to affect. So, and again, it's like it's hard to know. Is it? It's like the same thing as I'm saying. Is it teachable?
Yeah.
how much information do we have to give somebody, or how much information do we need to receive before we can say, yes, now we're making an informed
Mhm.
choice,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that might be impossible in the end, really, to do it all. Yeah. And
But I think
because of
it's
but
mhm,
it's necessary, but because of what people's stories are, because of what people's capacity to hear, you can do your best, and we do our best, and we need to do our best, and that's kind of what we'll talk about next, maybe the book you're working on, or the book
mhm,
your book.
mhm.
Um, but in the end, it comes down to that person has the agency to decide whether, based on their own capacity to engage or to hear what's being said, to understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also the question becomes like, where does that capacity come from,
Yeah.
right? Because different households, like my experience, different households, different cultures,
Hmm.
um, you know, different even generations have different capacity. And so I think that that's sort of where our biggest opportunity comes, kind
Mm.
of, is like, how do we increase people's capacity for that? Or how do we
Mm,
expand people's
right.
capacity for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I
Perfect.
have this conversation with my daughter. My daughter has autism, and so there's another really big lift for me as a single mom working and supporting my daughter and helping her out. And, we talk about that, and I just always say, like, it's really hard because it's just me doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's no family who will come and support. There's no community. There's no, there aren't like people saying, "Hey, like you're a single mom to an autistic kid. Let's like support you. Like, what's going on?" It's a very lonely world we traverse with disabled families here in the United States.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So true. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that, and I think when maybe with certain disabilities, there's a little bit of change in that, where the people that have the children with that disability are coming together to try and support each other. But then
Right.
there's so much day to day, minute to minute things that are going on that it's almost
Yeah.
like connecting with people that
Right.
could support you is just another thing that you might have to do, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that there's a little bit of change with communities within communities that are sort
Uh-huh.
of forming in that way. But yeah, I can only imagine how difficult.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
as you said, this conversation is one that we're having. The reason we're doing this podcast is to begin to have these conversations and begin to get people more comfortable with talking about all of this thing. So
All of
Hmm.
really
it.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'd like to hear more about the current work you're doing, or the work you've done, and are engaged with your book, and the other work. Really fascinating stuff, I looked at it. It's very, very, looks very useful, very important. So,
Oh, thank you. My book. Yeah. So when my mother died, this was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and it will always be the worst thing that ever happened to me. But when that immediately when it happened, and the whole process since then until today, which is 13 years later,
mm,
um, I just have in I continue to see ways in which her preparation for her death, and all of her preparation for me, like how she prepared me for life, I still see new ways that in a new situation that I'm facing, how that preparation helped me. And then how my
Mhm.
process through grief has just transformed me. And then how my process through grief was so informed and affected by how my mother prepared me,
mhm, mhm,
Hmm.
And so I was the first person of my group of friends to lose my mother. I wasn't super young. I was 34, but young enough. And now is sort of the time, I'm in my late 40s. Now is this time where more of my friends are losing their parents and stuff. And I was also the closest to my mother. And so when I was completely shattered, but also still able to take on all this responsibility of being the executor. She had multiple properties. My brother was in a mental health crisis at that time. He was actually already in the hospital when my mom passed away. So trying to take care of him and all of the different things that I was handling, and my friends, knowing how shattered I was, knowing how much my mom was like everything to me, and knowing how much responsibility I was now taking on and functioning to a certain degree, they were just in awe, right? Like, how are you able to do this? And I was like, well, like my mom prepared me, like specific questions they would ask me. How do you know how to do this? How do you know how to do that? How do you know what to do with this property? And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, well, my mom prepared
Told
me,
you. Yeah.
and not like sat down and had a conversation with me one day. Like this was constant, consistent
Mhm.
Yes.
values, right? Sacrifice, like especially as immigrant children. One thing that I really thought about and reflected on, or it just kind of hit me one day where I was like, as immigrant children of immigrants, how we what we pass on to our children is not as important as how we pass on
Mm.
what we pass on to our children, because the
Hmm.
level of, and I'm not saying that other families aren't like this, but when immigrant families come to another country, oftentimes they come with nothing, they build from nothing, and they have to sacrifice a lot to build whatever it is that they have. And because of the values of, sort of, we'll say Eastern cultures or however you want to call them, it's very important to pass on to your children, and for your children to have an easier time than you did.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so if you pass this stuff on, wealth, say, without any instruction or without
Yeah.
your values and your expectations of them, then it's just gonna get blown, right?
Right.
And I'll tell you guys a story that I was really, it's still, this is kind of what informed that idea. A couple of years after my mom died, I went to our accountant. So he had been her accountant. Now he was my accountant. And he was looking at, everything that I'd done and everything that I had. And he said, oh, this is like 2 years, I think, after. He's like, it's so nice to see that you still have the money that your mom gave you. And I was like, what do you mean? Of course I have the money that my mom gave me. And he just said, oh, Monica, you have no idea what people do,
Mm.
And I was like, to me, I was still a nurse at that time. I could blow my own money, do whatever. But as far as my mother's money, it was like, no, I had to do exactly
Mhm.
what I think she would have done or exactly what
Right.
she would have wanted me to do. And she had
Uh,
left that very clear to me.
That's
Right.
nice.
beautiful.
So my friends, they were like, oh no, my parents' finances are none of my business. Like they have no idea. They don't even know where they have a bank account, like no clue whatsoever. Right. And I remember in my mind being like, oh, okay, well, good luck when they die, you
Right.
know? And so over time, I realized I want to try my best to help people to be any more prepared than they
Mhm.
are today,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, in any way possible, because, you know, there's a lot of resistance when I
Right.
Right.
talk about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what is it that you're doing?
Yeah.
So I, a couple of years ago, I became an end of life doula, but then I decided I wanted to do advanced care planning more,
Mhm.
especially for this reason, because I wanted people to be more prepared. And because I'm in Tulum, I'm sort of isolated. I don't have another, end of life doulas or anything around me. So what I decided to do was develop an online program. So
Mhm.
that's my complete family legacy planning program. And it takes people through every single part of planning, including
Mhm.
clinical, legal. Obviously, they have to work with the lawyer, but I really prepare them for those
Mhm.
meetings and what they need to take. Financial planning, personal planning, and then one thing that I think is missing from a lot of advanced care plans is caregiving planning,
Mhm.
Mhm.
which I've never really seen in any other
Hmm.
programs. Um, to be talking about that. And so many times when I've seen with clients that now the opportunity is gone to ask their parent what they would want, if it would be okay, for example, if they could go to a nursing home. But
Right.
now the
Mhm.
parent is in full fledged dementia and the family is trying to take care of the family member and they're
Mhm.
drowning, right? But
Mhm.
they cannot bring themselves to bring them to a nursing home because
Mhm.
they never had the conversation with their parent before and they are completely convinced that their parent would never ever want that.
Right.
But they
Right.
Right.
don't know
Right.
right?
Right.
It's just the assumption, and they never had the conversation when they had the chance. So I
Yeah.
think that with caregiving planning, it's difficult. I mean, with any kind of planning, there's this idea that, we can plan for XYZ and maybe, you know, S is going to happen. So we can't
Right.
prepare for everything. And with
Right.
caregiving planning, even more so because we don't know what kind of,
Right.
trajectory we're going
Need
to
is
take.
we go. Right.
Yeah. But I think there are some baseline choices, baseline decisions, baseline values that can be talked about that can inform
Yeah.
any kind of sort of path that that person may take, and to
Yeah.
Right.
just help the family to, you know, make decisions.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the key too is that and that's what I always tell everybody I talk about advanced care directive planning. It's like, you can have this document and this document may actually like be left behind in your desk drawer when something is going on. So people don't actually know, but the people around you who have heard you talk about the values that you have will be able to make informed decisions with or without that piece of paper because they'll be like, wait a second, my mother said this over and over again. And I think that this situation, I think she'd be okay with this, right?
Hmm.
Like, I want to die in the woods, but if I have dementia, my kids know like you don't have to take care of me full time. Like it's okay. I want to make sure that you're okay. So they already hear that. They know they're
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, that choice, we know what our values lie in.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's having
Yeah,
those conversations.
it's
Exactly.
having those conversations. So my program is kind of built in the idea that I had these conversations, like I said, over a lifetime. Not
Hmm.
everybody has that opportunity. And especially now, they don't have the opportunity of that much time because their parents are getting older and now it's time to have those conversations. So to provide everything in one place that's a container that sort
Hmm.
of you can get the most benefit of, instead of having the lifetime of conversations, the most sort of robust conversations and planning that you can in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I'm actually like, right, I built this program this year. So I'm
Oh, great.
still in, it's complete, but I'm
Hmm.
still in the sort of building momentum, getting it out there, beta testing and that kind of stuff with the
Great.
program. But
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
super, super happy with it.
Wow. So important. Thank you. I mean,
Mhm.
we do this. Both of us do similar things, and I can't. There can't be enough, really. So every opportunity, we'll certainly put podcast notes. We'll have links and everything for so people can get in touch. And I
Mhm.
love that you're
Great.
doing it online. That reaches out. I do my class online as well, just for that reason.
Hmm.
Just because you
Mhm.
want to be able to reach as many people as possible, and there can't be enough. Like I said, it's just like
Yeah.
the more the better. And so, thank you so much for doing that. And I think it's great. I think it'd be kind of fun sometime for all of us to sit down and compare notes and say, because
Mhm.
I know every single time I do in my class, I learn something new from the people I'm teaching. And I
Mhm.
add things and add things. Keeps getting
Hmm.
Mhm.
longer, but anyway. So thank you so much for doing that. And when you said caregiving, I was kind of wondering whether you meant talking about who you would have as a caregiver or but you're talking more, it sounds like you're talking more about what kind of caregiving would you prefer, or what kind, depending on what situation comes up. And as you said, we can't know every situation, things change. And the other
Mhm.
part that we've talked about many times is to make sure you don't just put that on the shelf somewhere and forget about it, but you look at it again in a year or whatever and
Mhm.
say, is it still valid? Is it people that
Mhm.
do I still feel this way? Do we
Hmm.
have enough money? And
Hmm.
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. So
That's the big issue.
Did someone
yeah,
die before you, or
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah,
That's why you pick young people to be your care agents.
yeah. But even for the caregiving, like for caregiving planning, say if the person is like, no, I really want to be cared for in the home by
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
family. Okay. But now let's talk about what that is actually going to look like, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
How is it going to be manageable for the family? Are you expecting one person to do it? If that's the case, how are they going to be supported? Where are the finances? Where are this, right? Because we know
Mhm.
what happens. Normally, it's just something happens, and now the caregiving is dumped on one family member,
Yes.
right? The one that happens to be the closest in proximity. And of course,
Mhm.
they have to be that person. But say the other people that are farther away, there's other ways that they could still support that
Support.
person,
That's right.
but they're like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm hands off." So if these, it's kind of explored the reality of the situation, with the person who needs the
Mhm.
caregiving involved, I
Mhm.
still feel like it can really, address
Yeah.
at least some of the really big problems that
Right.
Yeah,
could
yeah.
come up ahead.
That's so,
I
so
also
important.
I
Thank
also
you.
like to talk about who you don't want to have around you. That's an important piece for
Absolutely.
me. I'm
Mhm.
like, make a list of people you do not want anywhere near you,
Mhm.
and we can stick it because that also happens quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
The people that come out of the woodwork when you're like, "Oh, now she's dying," or something,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
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 That I have in my, the personal planning part, because the personal planning has more to do with how you would wanna be cared for sort of in your last period, like whether that's
Mhm.
months or weeks or days, and then goes
Mhm.
into vigil and funeral or
Mhm.
memorial planning and things, but it's definitely included in there, like, who do you
Mhm.
not want to
Yeah,
be
who
around? Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Uh,
100%.
So,
yeah,
what are your challenges that you find with this with your line of work right now?
Yeah, so it's definitely the resistance to talk about
mhm,
it,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so I find that talking to people about grief is so much easier
mm,
because
Mm.
they're in it, right? And
right.
they're
Mhm.
experiencing it and they're in it and they want to feel better or they just want to be, witnessed in it, whatever it is. So it's a lot easier to talk to people about grief than it is to talk to people about advanced care planning. And even
Yeah.
when you talk to them, you're like, every single person has a story about a family that they know that, was left in a
Mhm.
complete mess because of no
Mhm.
planning or not sufficient planning or whatever. And even then, it's still like, oh yeah, we know we need to do that. We're gonna
Yeah.
do it. We're gonna do it. And so that's the hardest part for sure.
Yeah, yeah. We were
Hmm.
just talking about people we know in our lives who both, of course, we talk about this all the time. That's who we are, right? But who
Mhm.
will literally say, "No, I don't want anything to do with that. I'm not going to think about that."
Mhm.
Right? So,
Mhm.
Hmm.
yeah, I thought about that question about challenges. I thought that's probably the biggest
Yeah.
challenge. It's the
Hmm.
challenge we face the
Hmm.
most is people who
Hmm.
Or
just
on
are afraid of this or don't want to talk about it.
or what I find this has happened a lot of times too for me is I say, "Hey, so, do you have your advanced care directive plan?" And they'll say, "Yes, I've already talked to my lawyer, or I have my living will, and I have my whatever," right? Like whatever words that they want to use. And I was like, "Well,
Power
is
of
that really
attorney, and that's
does
it.
it have does it have your advanced care?" And they look at me as though I'm an idiot. Like, I have my will. And I'm always, so I have to figure out like what kind of relationship I have with this. It's usually a friend. It's usually a good friend who will be like, they don't really actually know what it is I'm talking about, but they think they know. And they're going to be really resistant to like accepting that there is something else that they should be doing. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
Like,
much more.
yeah. And so I recently talked to a friend. I was like, oh, I need to redo my advanced care directive. And he said, yeah, like I need to do my will again. And I'm like, do you have your advanced care directive? He's like, well, I have to, I'll have to call my lawyer and do my will. It's really bizarre. Like, I'm like, all right,
little,
well, I'll
little,
show you my advanced care when I'm done so that you can get an idea of what it is I'm talking about.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, and one of the ways that I kind of address that with people, one, I think, this is also just we're still stuck in these old ideas and these old systems that haven't caught up that having a will is enough, right?
Yeah,
Even if we're not even talking about our advanced care directives, even with that, having a will really isn't enough,
that's
right? Like
right.
Right.
we
Yeah.
have all these devices and all these different bank accounts everywhere and digital
Right.
bank accounts and cryptocurrency and properties all like you just have a will. What is the person really going to do with that, right? How are they going to
hmm
how are they going
hmm
to know where things are and how to move things? And
Mhm.
also, again, a will is you get this, you get that, but it's not like what I would really hope happens with
Right.
that or
Right.
anything,
Right.
right? But another way that I kind of address that with people is first, a will is not enough, but a will is you're dead and it's assets, right? But you
Mhm.
are so much more than a list of assets.
mm,
And what about life? What about what happens before death? Like a will is
Right.
boom, you're dead. What about the even little bit of time before
Right.
that or the
Right.
extended, right? And so now
Yeah.
it's not about your heirs or your assets. It's really about you and what
Yeah.
you want that last time to
It's the
yeah,
value.
to
yeah,
look like.
So,
and
yeah.
and also, like you said, more than I mean, at least in the state I'm in Washington State, um, just having a will is you're gonna be spending months in court
Mhm.
because you've gotta go through the whole probate and intestacy and all this stuff to find out the court has to approve it, and if you've only got a will and there's no depending on your assets, but, there's no explanation, what do you wanna have happen to your car? Or, this kind of stuff. The courts are gonna have to figure this out,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
it'll take a lot longer unless in spending the time thinking about these things and getting them talked about and written down, hopefully in
Mhm.
some way that people can find it and know where to find it. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
much more. So thanks.
So
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
in the legal part of my program where people are going to have to go see a lawyer and everything, I explain I have a whole list of the types of assets that people may have because
hmm
your lawyer isn't going to ask you, do you have a car? Do you have this? Do you have that? No,
Mhm.
you have
Mhm.
to go to them saying, this is a list of assets that I have, and all of these need to be included in my
Right.
hmm
will, right?
hmm
Right. Right.
Um, I even ask people, like, I know this is, not so common anymore, but it still does happen. Like, if you have some cash buried somewhere or hidden in the house somewhere, like, you don't have to have that in your will, but somebody needs to know where it is,
right.
Yeah.
right? Somebody
Yeah.
Yeah.
needs to know where it is. So,
I know. And, this is the funny thing. I think that we become stingy with well, or actually we hide the parts of ourselves in this modern age, right? Because it's a little embarrassing. I have like thousands of books in this house. And I tell the kids, when I die, you have to go through every single one of these books because I used to stash like 20s in a book
nice.
because you never knew. I was like,
You
that's
never
my savings
know.
account. So I was like, it'll make you go through all my books from my 20s and you'll be, oh, there's a five, there's two fives, mom, left here and a card, whatever. But, it could be like shaming to tell people that's how I save some of my money, right? Nobody wants to know that. But I'm like, it's a scavenger hunt when I die. Like,
Absolutely. And also such a connection to you and a way for them to even get to know you, right? By what you were
oh, yeah.
reading after.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that's just
No,
I love that.
That's a
Yeah.
good
yeah.
idea. I think I'm going to go put a bunch of money in my books.
Yeah, because it'll make
They
sure that they actually do it, right? Yeah.
no, and we know we clean out books every once in a while, and I still do that too. I'm like, did I leave anything in here? I just found some pictures in one of my books. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
I haven't seen these forever. And I was like, okay, bye bye book, but you got to keep a picture.
Little
Um,
treasures for sure.
I also just cleaned out my basement, and I found a bunch of old pictures of when I went fly fishing in Montana, and I had stuck them in a bunch of old um, my tackle boxes for that purpose because I kind of wanted to be surprised by these memories. I'm like, oh yeah, I took this tackle box with me when I went to Montana. But I think that that's the thing. We need to be more playful with this end of life piece because
Absolutely.
people are so resistant and they're so ashamed of what they do or didn't do, or I don't know. It just feels like it's silly. Like, let's just get
Silly.
in there.
I
It's
love that.
it is, and for me, sometimes I almost think that it's hard for me to understand the people that I work with, right?
Mm.
And their resistance because
Right.
it was just so normal to me and I don't have that kind of resistance and so,
Right.
and so it's a challenge for me sometimes to be like, no, no, I actually have to meet this resistance with compassion and try and
Yeah.
understand it, right? But the playfulness is so important. So, I last year when I was still studying to become doing the advanced care planning, I got this. I had some girlfriends that were staying here with me, and one of them is like very she never wants to talk about it. She doesn't even want to talk about it. She doesn't tell people her age. She doesn't want to talk about aging. She doesn't want to talk about death ever. So I got this app because I was, studying this and I got this app. I don't know if you know it. It's called We Croak. Have
We
you ever
croak.
heard?
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what it does is I think 3 or 4 times a day it sends you a little alert. And when you open the alert, you get a quote about death, like really profound or
Oh,
funny or whatever
beautiful.
it is. But
yeah.
this is the best part. So the alert says, "Don't forget, you're gonna die." And so the alert was a special sound that my phone didn't make any other time. So every time it would ding, Rachel, my friend, would know what it was. And I'd be like, oh, don't forget, you're going to die. And she was like at the beginning, she was like, and then the next time I'd be like, if I was around her, I'd be like, oh, don't forget, we're going to die. She'd be like, And over time, over a month, she
Mhm.
started to laugh every time, and
Beautiful.
she started to say it. When she would hear the ding, she'd be like, "Oh,
Mhm.
don't forget, you're gonna die." And so that was
Love
like
it.
last year, January to March-ish, and then just this year, I went to Vancouver. She lives in Vancouver. I was in Vancouver. My dad passed away, actually, and I was staying at her house for a few days, and we had this full-on conversation about death and mortality,
Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
you know?
Wow.
And so the lightness,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it can go a long way. I didn't have that expectation when I was doing it, you
Yeah.
know, of the app, but it yeah.
That's
And
a
that just
really good
proves
story.
it is a great story, and I love how it reinforces what Keel and I are doing is the more we try to encourage these conversations and talk to people about this is a great conversation to be having. It may be difficult at the beginning for some, but hopefully over time, it just kind of annoys people enough to be like, "Okay, fine," like, "Let's have that conversation." And I just taught a class, it was, cultural, economics, and racial considerations at the end of life. And I had this whole weekend class and we were talking and finally this one woman piped in and she said, I've never been with somebody who she's like, this is not the right word, but so irreverent about death. She's like, it's so fun to hear you talk about this because you're just so light about it. And I'm like, it's under the umbrella of life. There's birth and death. This is just a life. Like, I don't, why not?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
Right, exactly.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I could definitely use to be a little bit more light about it.
Yeah.
Um, that would probably help.
Yeah, I think
So
that's a great lesson, learn being
mhm,
playful, learning to
yeah,
be playful about everything in life, really.
about everything,
Yeah.
absolutely. So on it, I would love to compare notes if we can do that at some point, because another one of my challenges is again like being here in Tulum and sort of isolated from. There's a
Mm.
lot of people that are working in thanatologia here, not a lot, but some, which is sort of a different. It's
thanatology.
Thanatology, yeah, and they're doing great work, but we're not quite the same, yeah, so I'm, loosely connected with them, but I would love to, yeah, just
Mhm. Yeah, well, we could
brainstorm
I'd love
and
to do that too, but I wanna just hold space for like, we just interviewed a bunch of death doulas, and everybody comes to it with different skills and different, challenges and, ways that they can support people, and, uh, I actually wrote a book called The 15 Minutes Before You Die. It's a little
mhm,
workbook so people can go through and figure out their advanced care directive planning steps, and not everybody will find that to be as useful. Wakil has a different, you know, uh, class that he teaches. I feel like all of us collectively can learn from each other, but we don't have to catch every single person's needs, right?
yeah, yeah.
Like the people who are called to us will be who we can support.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
like you said, what there can't be enough, right? There
Yeah,
can't be enough. There was a time where, it seemed like obviously when you're in the world, it also seems that way. Where like, oh, everybody's becoming a death doula now. Like, should I do it or am I too late or what's
Right.
the situation? But then I kind of compared it to how many personal trainers there are in the world or how many
Right.
yeah,
yoga teachers there
yeah,
are in the world. And that
yeah.
doesn't mean in any way that there shouldn't be another yoga teacher or that there shouldn't
Right,
be another personal trainer, right?
Right.
right.
And especially since every single person on this planet is going to die, probably there can't be enough,
That's
Yeah.
right.
doulas or people working in this like field or realm
Hmm.
in any way that they are. So,
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I think I really appreciate that too. And actually it's true. It's partially because of the people we hang out with that it seems like everybody is doing death work because
Hmm.
everybody we
Hmm.
talk to is in fact doing that. But it
Yeah.
really is a pretty small group of people when
yeah,
in
it's
the
still very
worldwide picture.
new.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, the
Um,
stuff I search for on YouTube or the stuff that I search for on
yeah,
podcasts where
yeah.
say everything's about death. No,
Right.
everything is
Yeah.
not about death. Everything that you're
Yeah.
looking for
Yeah.
is about
It
that, right?
does.
And it is amazing though. There is so many conversations going on. And
Yeah.
in that way, yeah, if we think about it, it is really quite new. Like
Hmm.
how many years can we be talking that this has been maybe since post pandemic or like during pandemic? I think that that's where it became a little bit more
I would
mainstream.
It has been more mainstream because I remember when I trained to be a natural funeral director with Karen, this woman from Boulder. This was, like 15 years ago. And she told me, she's like, "As a death midwife, you're way too early. People do not know what you're doing and you're needed, but they have no idea what you're doing." And so now it's like, yeah, everybody's come out of the woodwork and saying that they're doing that stuff too. And I was like, "Oh my God, I've been doing this for so long." Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know,
But it's
Mhm.
also has to do with algorithms, I think, that's all we see, you know?
this is
So
true.
Yes. Yeah.
but
And
yeah,
and also we're calling it in, Wakil. Let's be real. My
that's
my
right.
yard sale this weekend, I talked to everybody about death.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, that's what we do.
Yeah.
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 But
All
we
right,
get
next
we
question, Wakil. Yeah.
what kind of things do you do to keep yourself resourced, in this work? I think that's always a good important thing for us to hear.
Yeah. I live in the Caribbean, so I'm quite lucky
That
in that
helps.
way. So yeah, so it's a very life otherwise is not super stressful, and I think that in general is just a really helpful thing.
Mhm.
Plus, we have the beach and cenotes and lagoons, and so nature is always a big part of my um self-care, I guess. I'm really
Yeah,
good at self-care, actually.
good.
Yeah, I'm really good at
Mhm.
self-care. And, I play sports, and I keep myself active, and I, eat good food, and I have really, really good friends. So I'm very
Beautiful. I
fortunate in
love
that
that.
situation where they let me, even if they're uncomfortable with it, they let me talk about death and my work and challenges and everything in between, and we talk about everything, and it's a really beautiful thing. I think my friends are probably my biggest resource.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
Wow, what a
Yeah.
blessing. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
Mm.
wanna
So
know
we
what
have
frightens me?
yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah, yeah, go
well,
ahead. I mean, what the kind of the last thing is there anything we haven't asked that you wanna talk about? And that
so
is one of the questions, so certainly. Tell
Well,
us what frightens
I'm
you,
not
yeah.
sure if you're gonna wanna include this or not, but, honestly, so my big thing is dementia. That is
Mm,
what frightens me the most about the end of life, and,
mhm.
yeah.
last year, I've all of a sudden, it got, like, intense, and I was like, "I can't get dementia, that's the one thing I absolutely can't get," and so I started researching and everything I could about how to prevent the best ways to prevent it or whatever, and I found out that, I was doing most of the things already. And actually, the number one thing that we can do to prevent dementia is exercise, and an especially sort of complex exercise, things
Hmm,
like dancing, like learning, you're moving your body, but you're also like learning choreography and
Mm,
mhm.
things like that. So I did Muay Thai which is kind of like kickboxing, for 13 years. So I was like, oh, that's the same as dancing. I'm
Yeah.
totally doing that.
yeah.
Um, and I remember at the time I was talking to people, my friends and stuff about it, and I was like, I'm really scared of dementia. So I was like, who is going to take care of me? Like that is a thing
Mhm,
that is so for all of us, right?
Sure,
Who
mhm,
is
yeah.
going to take care of us? But especially like I have no family, right? So who is going to take care of me? And my really good friend, who's 15 years younger than me, who lived here in Tulum for a lot of years, and she moved back to Hungary, she was like, I'll take care of you. And
Aw.
even that, like, it meant so much to
Mhm,
me, But yeah, dementia, I think, is my number one.
Oh, yeah,
mhm,
yeah, I certainly
mhm.
understand that. That's hard.
Mhm.
I just worked with a family whose mother had shown signs of dementia 20 years ago, and then after 5 years started really going downhill and was being cared for at home for another 5 years, and then 10 more years of being institutionalized, and, this so 20 years of dealing with this,
Mhm.
wow, and it's so, so hard. She just died, so they came to do some counseling, and, but this wow, just each of them, there's 2 boys, 2 sons, and the father. And it was also interesting, each of their perspectives were a little different, and each of them needed a little different considerations, things to think about.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
yeah, that's part of it too. How are the people who are going to take care of you?
mhm,
How are they going to be taken care of? And
mhm,
supported. I like what you said earlier about making sure that that caregiver has care, and
Mhm.
that's a really important piece of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you wish we'd have asked you about?
Not that I can think of. That was a really nice conversation. I loved it. I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
you guys are great interviewers. I don't know if you developed that skill as you went along or if it was something that you naturally have, but yeah, you're really good at just keeping conversation flowing and I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed listening to the other episodes that you've done as well. So,
Great. Yeah, thank
mhm.
you. Appreciate that. Tell all your friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Well,
think
all
we
my
started.
friends are excited about this episode, so that'll
Oh,
get
for
them
sure.
Yeah.
started. Yeah. Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, it'll probably come in September or so. We'll let you know. Yeah, I
Okay.
think Ana Luisa and I were having these conversations, and I think we're just naturally good at conversing with this
Well,
about this.
we
We
went to
just realized
seminary
that.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so every time they said, okay, find a partner and break up and like go and discuss whatever, he and I would connect and we'd be like, yeah. And then they died or what. Like it was always like circling around this whole death paradigm. And I'm like, dude, like you're like right. We're stinking right in it.
This seems to be our thing, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's do something with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great.
Absolutely. That's become our
That's
ministry.
great. Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you want to read your poem?
Oh, she froze. That's what's
Yeah.
happening. Well, why don't we read it? And then if she comes back, we'll let her read it again. You want to
Okay.
read it?
Sure.
You want it? Okay.
It's a poem by Andrea Gibson, but we were reading just an excerpt of it. It's called The Life Giving Benefits of Befriending Our Mortality. At the end of our lives, don't we want to say we celebrate the holiday of having bodies? Don't we want to know more, to know we have lived like we never forgot we were born astonished and were never intended to grow out of our awe? Awe is the most powerful medicine in the world. I have never felt awe and shame at the same time, awe and loneliness at the same time, awe and judgment at the same time, and nothing wakes us to awe more than life's brevity, which is to say, forming an intimate relationship with our mortality could not only save us, it could save our world. If you don't believe me, tell me the last time you saw anything bite with its jaw dropped. I know the culture we live in. I know mortality isn't small talk, but I wish it was, because it is the seed of connection, the seed of true healing, and the seed of love.
Wow. I love that line. Tell me the
Mhm.
last time you saw anything bite with its jaw dropped.
Mhm.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for joining us today. Please stick around after the credits for our afterthoughts, and it helps our numbers if you stay until the end. We want to thank my children, Nate, Vivian, Nina, and her fiance Asher, for the excellent opening song, and a special thanks to our awesome editor, Sam Zemke, who is also a guest on our podcast. You can listen to him on Season 4, Episode 5. Also, thank you to Charles Heaston, the composer of the original music you are listening to now.
And of course, thanks to you, our audience, and all of our amazing guests. Please come back next week for another great episode. Share this with your friends, family, and community. We hope you will subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. Each guest's additional information will be found in the podcast notes. And of course, if you have a good end-of-life story to share, please reach out. We are always eager to hear from you.
Wow.
Another one of our people,
Yeah, it's so
right?
good to meet somebody. Yeah.
Well, and you and I are always going on about advanced care directive planning, and this human being is actually out there giving it away, trying to get people
Yeah.
to like really think about all these choices that we have. But I do like that she did talk about there's a baseline of choices that we can plan for.
Hmm.
And we may not get to do any of those things, but at least we have a road map to see what we want or don't want.
Right, right. And she helps to create that. That's great. And also that as many people we've met, she was she had an experience in her life where she was
That's
like,
right.
wow, this is so important that people do this planning. And so how can I help? And so
That's
instead of
right.
just saying this is so important, she set something up to help. She has some free resources that are really excellent on her website.
Mhm.
And again, stuff that you'll be able to access by looking at our podcast notes. So I'm really glad that we got another chance to meet another awesome person doing this work. How cool is that?
I love it. I love it. Yes, so we should talk to Monica again sometime.
We should. All right. Well, thank you very much. Lovely to
Thank
be with you
you.
again. See ya.
Butterflies.